Before the flashing lights of Hollywood and the roar of arenas filled with fans, Selena Gomez was just a little girl growing up in the small town of Grand Prairie, Texas. Born on July 22, 1992, her life began in modest surroundings, far from the glamour of the entertainment industry. Raised primarily by her mother, Mandy T. Fay, who had Selena when she was just 16 years old, Selena's early years were marked by both struggle and love. The two shared a special bond, almost like sisters more than mother and daughter, navigating life with limited resources but an abundance of dreams. Mandy's background in theater inspired Selena's first fascination with the stage. Watching her mother perform and rehearse planted a seed in the young girl's mind. Storytelling wasn't just something to enjoy, it was something she wanted to be a part of. Selena's childhood wasn't an easy one. Growing up with a young single mother meant that financial stability was hard to come by. And there were times when even the basics seemed uncertain. But instead of discouraging her, these struggles gave Selena resilience that would later define her career. She often credits those early days in Texas with teaching her humility, grounding her in values of hard work, and keeping her connected to her roots even as fame pulled her into new worlds. Her first real break came when she landed a spot on the children's show Barney Friends at just 7 years old. Clad in bright colors, singing and dancing alongside the iconic purple dinosaur, Selena began honing her craft in front of cameras. Though she was just a child, she quickly proved she had a natural charisma and ease in front of an audience. The show may have been playful, but it was her first taste of what life in entertainment could offer. When Barney Friends eventually cut her from the cast after 2 years, it was a blow. But Selena didn't let it stop her. Instead, it taught her an early lesson about rejection, persistence, and the reality of chasing big dreams. These early experiences shaped Selena's personality. Friends and peers would often describe her as thoughtful, kind, and surprisingly mature for her age. She carried herself with a quiet determination, a mix of her mother's artistic influence and her own desire to rise above the limitations of her environment. Though she didn't yet know how far her journey would take her, one thing was certain: Selena Gomez wasn't afraid of hard work. And she wasn't about to let circumstances hold her back. This blend of resilience, creativity, and humility laid the foundation for everything that was to come. The small-town girl from Texas was just getting started, and her story was already proving that greatness can grow from even the humblest beginnings. After her early years in Texas and her short-lived stint on Barney Friends, Selena Gomez found herself auditioning relentlessly, hoping for the role that would finally put her on the map. For a while, the auditions led only to small guest appearances, like brief roles on shows such as The Sweet Life of Zack Cody and Hannah Montana. Yet each step was part of the bigger climb, leading her closer to her defining breakthrough. That moment arrived in 2007. When Disney Channel cast her in Wizards of Waverly Place as Alex Russo, the witty, mischievous middle child of a family of wizards living in New York City. As Alex Russo, she struck the perfect balance of sarcasm, intelligence, and charm. Unlike other Disney heroines who were often portrayed as bubbly or overtly cheerful, Alex was unapologetically clever and rebellious, giving audiences, especially young viewers who were tired of picture-perfect characters, someone who felt refreshingly real. Critics and fans alike noted how Selena's comedic timing carried the show, making Alex Russo one of the most beloved Disney Channel characters of the era. Wizards of Waverly Place would go on to run for 4 seasons, spawn a TV movie, and even win an Emmy Award, cementing its place in Disney Channel history. But beyond the success of the show, Wizards launched Selena into the ranks of Disney royalty. The mid to late 2000s marked the golden era of the Disney Channel, with names like Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, Demi Lovato, Camp Rock, and the Jonas Brothers dominating the pop culture landscape. Selena became one of the network's brightest stars, often mentioned in the same breath as her peers. What set her apart, however, was the unique image she cultivated. While Miley embraced a louder, edgier persona and Demi leaned into powerhouse vocals and emotional intensity, Selena quietly built her brand on being the grounded one, the relatable, approachable star who seemed closest to the girl next door. This wasn't an accident. Disney carefully shaped Selena's public persona to complement her natural qualities. Her interviews portrayed her as kind, humble, and well-mannered, qualities that resonated with parents and young fans alike. Selena didn't get swept up in the same wave of tabloid scandals that haunted some of her peers during their teenage years. Instead, she cultivated an image of stability and level-headedness, which not only made her a favorite among Disney executives but also helped her stand out in a world where young stars were often overexposed. Selena's success on Wizards opened doors to music collaborations with Disney, red carpet appearances, and eventually her own band, Selena Gomez the Scene. But at its core, this period of her life was about her becoming a household name. From magazine covers to talk show appearances, Selena Gomez wasn't just another young actress, she was one of the defining faces of an entire Disney generation. For millions of young fans, she wasn't just Alex Russo, she was a role model who seemed relatable and trustworthy, someone who proved you could be successful without losing your sense of self. Little did she know, though, that while Disney would make her a star, stepping outside of its carefully crafted bubble would present some of her biggest challenges yet. As Wizards of Waverly Place became a global hit, Selena Gomez knew that her career couldn't live forever inside the Disney bubble. The clock was ticking, Disney stars always faced the same crossroads: stay in the safe world of family programming, or risk everything by stepping into the unpredictable, sometimes unforgiving, world beyond. For Selena, the next chapter wasn't just about proving she could act or sing, it was about carefully crafting a path that would allow her to grow up without losing the trust and admiration she had built. In 2008, she took her first major step by signing a record deal with Hollywood Records and forming her pop-rock band, Selena Gomez the Scene. Unlike some of her Disney peers who went straight into solo music careers, Selena made the deliberate choice to launch a band. This not only gave her credibility as a performer but also helped her ease into the music industry without being labeled as just another Disney kid trying to sing. Their debut album, Kiss Tell, 2009, was filled with catchy tracks like Naturally, which became a fan favorite and earned heavy rotation on Radio Disney and beyond. Over the next few years, the band would release albums like A Year Without Rain and When the Sun Goes Down, producing hits that established Selena as a genuine pop star. At the same time, she carefully tested the waters in Hollywood films. Her role in Ramona and Beezus, 2010, allowed her to transition into family-friendly cinema, showing that she could play more than a sarcastic wizard. Then came Monte Carlo, 2011, a glamorous adventure film that leaned on her charm and charisma while putting her in the kind of roles young audiences wanted to see her in: romantic, stylish, and fun. These projects weren't groundbreaking, but they were intentional. They gave Selena exposure in the mainstream movie industry without pushing her into overly provocative or risky territory. Selena's strategy was clear. Unlike some of her Disney peers who shocked audiences with sudden reinventions, she opted for a gradual evolution. She didn't rebel against the image that made her famous, she built on it. She embraced music that was fun but age-appropriate, films that expanded her range but still appealed to her existing fan base, and public appearances that reinforced her relatable girl-next-door persona. While Miley Cyrus leaned into controversy and Demi Lovato confronted very public personal struggles, Selena quietly built her empire step by step, becoming the Disney graduate with the smoothest and most calculated transition. But behind her careful choices was also resilience. The pressures of fame, the comparisons to her peers, and the constant attention from the media could have derailed her. Yet Selena's ability to stay grounded, a quality instilled in her since her childhood in Texas, allowed her to navigate the tricky post-Disney years. By the time Wizards of Waverly Place ended in 2012, Selena Gomez wasn't just another Disney alum trying to hold on to the spotlight, she was already an established actress, a rising music star, and, most importantly, a brand that audiences trusted. Her calculated move set the stage for the next chapter of her career, one where she would no longer be defined by Disney but by her own choices in music, acting, and eventually, business. And while she was still only at the beginning of her adult career, Selena had already done what many young stars couldn't. She had built a bridge from child stardom to mainstream relevance without losing herself in the process. By the early 2010s, Selena Gomez had successfully made the leap from Disney darling to a young entertainer with serious momentum. With her band, Selena Gomez The Scene, she gave the world some of her first major pop hits. Among them, Love You Like a Love Song, 2011, became a defining anthem. Infectious, polished, and endlessly replayable, the track wasn't just a fan favorite, it was proof that Selena had real staying power in music. It also cemented her band's growing popularity, with performances on award shows, late-night television, and tours that began to shape Selena as more than an actress dabbling in music. Still, Selena knew that if she wanted to be taken seriously as a pop artist, she couldn't remain in the comfort zone of a band forever. In 2013, she stepped out on her own with her debut solo album, Stars Dance. This was a bold move, her chance to prove that she had an identity outside of Disney and outside of the scene. The album leaned into a more mature, electronic pop sound, driven by its lead single Come Get It. The track topped charts and became her first song to break into the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. Suddenly, Selena wasn't just the girl from Wizards of Waverly Place, she was a solo pop star in her own right. The accompanying world tour reinforced her evolution, allowing her to take command of the stage with a confidence that surprised critics who once underestimated her vocal ability. But music wasn't her only focus. During this period, Selena continued testing herself in acting roles. She starred in films like Spring Breakers, 2012, a gritty and controversial departure from her Disney persona. Though polarizing, the project showed she was willing to take risks and wasn't afraid of challenging herself with darker material. At the same time, lighter projects such as Hotel Transylvania, 2012, showcased her voice acting skills and kept her connected to younger audiences. This balance between edgy experimentation and mainstream accessibility was no accident, it was Selena's way of broadening her career without alienating any part of her audience. Of course, fame came with pressures. As she grew into one of the most recognizable young women in entertainment, Selena found herself under constant public scrutiny. Every performance, every red carpet appearance, every interview was dissected. Her image was endlessly compared to her peers, Miley Cyrus's provocativeness, Demi Lovato's raw confessions, Taylor Swift's songwriting. Selena was often framed as the calm in the storm, the star who chose measured growth over shocking reinvention. That reputation came with both admiration and criticism. Some questioned if she was too safe, while others saw it as a sign of her intelligence and longevity. What stood out most during this chapter was Selena's resilience. She leaned into the music, perfected her craft, and grew more comfortable in her own artistry. Each performance and each album release chipped away at the old labels of Disney star or teen actress. Selena Gomez was carving her space in pop culture, balancing the weight of her growing fame with the steady focus of someone determined to last. Her success during this period marked a turning point. No longer just a product of Disney or a young star figuring things out, Selena had arrived in the spotlight on her own terms. She was now a solo pop artist, a respected actress, and a public figure navigating fame with a kind of grace that made her story different from so many others. And while the journey was far from easy, it was clear, Selena wasn't just surviving the spotlight, she was thriving in it. As Selena Gomez's star rose higher, the world saw the glamorous red carpets, the chart-topping singles, and the successful film roles. But behind the scenes, she was fighting battles that would test her in ways no performance or career move ever could. In 2015, Selena revealed that she had been quietly living with lupus, an autoimmune disease that left her fatigued, in pain, and facing serious health complications. For a young woman in her early 20s, juggling tours, acting commitments, and global fame, the diagnosis was a weight that could have broken her. Instead, it became a defining part of her story. The seriousness of her condition became undeniable in 2017, when she underwent a life-saving kidney transplant. Fans were stunned when Selena later shared that her close friend, actress Francia Raisa, had donated the kidney. It was a moment that pulled back the curtain on the very real, life-threatening struggle she faced. When she returned to the stage later that year at the American Music Awards, performing Wolves just months after her surgery, the performance took on a deeper meaning. Every step, every lyric carried the weight of survival. But Selena's health struggles weren't just physical. As the pressures of fame and illness mounted, she began to open up about her mental health as well. She spoke candidly about her battles with anxiety, depression, and later, her diagnosis of bipolar disorder. In an industry that often demands perfection, Selena chose honesty. Her willingness to share her struggles with such raw vulnerability set her apart. It humanized her, stripped away the glossy veneer of celebrity, and revealed the young woman underneath, a person who, despite unimaginable challenges, was trying to heal, grow, and keep moving forward. Fans responded with overwhelming support. Instead of losing their admiration, they connected with her even more deeply. In Selena, they saw not just a superstar but someone who understood what it felt like to be overwhelmed, to hurt, to keep fighting. She became a beacon for those struggling with their own health battles, a reminder that resilience wasn't about never falling, it was about finding the strength to rise again. Through it all, her career not only survived but endured. Where many might have stepped back permanently, Selena used her struggles to fuel her artistry. Songs carried a heavier emotional weight, interviews became more reflective, and her image evolved into something more authentic than ever before. She was no longer just the polished Disney graduate turned pop star, she was a woman whose scars, both seen and unseen, told a story of survival. Resilience became the through line of her journey. Even when the world doubted if she could continue, Selena kept finding ways to adapt and grow. Her health battles, though deeply painful, gave her story a new dimension, one of vulnerability, strength, though courage. In sharing those battles with the world, Selena Gomez didn't just survive fame, she transformed it into a platform for something greater, turning personal struggle into collective healing. If Selena's professional life was a steady climb, her personal life was a storm the world never stopped watching. At the center of that storm was her on and off relationship with Justin Bieber, a saga that played out not only in private but under the constant gaze of cameras, paparazzi, and endless tabloid speculation. Beginning in the early 2010s, the young couple became one of Hollywood's most scrutinized romances. Every outing, every fight, every reconciliation was dissected and debated as though it were public property. For Selena, what might have been a typical young love story turned into an exhausting spectacle, shaping much of the public's perception of her in those years. The scrutiny didn't stop with Justin. As she navigated friendships, breakups, and fallouts, Selena's private life became a form of entertainment for the masses. Whether it was her closeness with Taylor Swift, rumors of feuds with other celebrities, or the eventual rift with Francia Raisa after the kidney transplant, headlines rarely left her alone. Even the smallest gesture, a social media unfollow, a vague post, or a paparazzi photo, was treated like evidence in a trial, spun into narratives that Selena herself often had no say in. For a woman who valued loyalty and privacy, the invasion was suffocating. But out of this chaos, Selena began to learn how to take control of her story. She stepped back from the spotlight at times, reclaiming her peace even when the media clamored for more drama. She stopped pretending she could satisfy every rumor and instead used her own platforms to clarify what mattered to her. Social media, which had once amplified the noise, became a tool for her to speak directly to fans in her own words, unfiltered by tabloids. By choosing vulnerability and honesty over silence, Selena reshaped her relationship with fame. Instead of allowing the world to define her by who she was dating or feuding with, she worked to center her narrative around her art, her resilience, and her advocacy. It wasn't easy, every step forward seemed to invite another headline, but she began to show that she could not only survive the media frenzy but also outlast it. This chapter of her life was painful, chaotic, and at times deeply unfair. And it taught her how to draw boundaries and reclaim power in an industry that thrives on spectacle. Selena Gomez, once a young star caught in the glare of gossip columns, learned to flip that light back onto her own terms. The tabloids could chase her, but they could no longer control the story. By the mid-2010s, Selena Gomez was no longer the girl Disney introduced to the world. She was stepping into her own as a woman, an artist, and a powerful force in the entertainment industry. Her reinvention began in earnest with the release of her solo material, most notably her 2015 album Revival. Gone were the bubblegum pop days of her early band era. Instead, songs like Good For You showcased a sultrier, more confident side of Selena. The album marked a turning point. She wasn't just a former child star testing the waters, she was a bona fide pop artist with her own sound, voice, and identity. Critics praised her evolution, and fans embraced the maturity of her music, seeing in it a reflection of their own coming-of-age journeys alongside her. But Selena's ambitions extended beyond the stage. She began taking on acting roles that signaled her growth, including more complex characters and experimental projects. At the same time, she made a bold move into producing, a shift that elevated her from performer to creative decision-maker. Her most prominent producing credit came with Netflix's 13 Reasons Why, a controversial yet impactful series that sparked global conversations about mental health, bullying, and suicide. While the series faced criticism, Selena's role in shepherding it into existence marked her transition into a figure who wanted to create content with weight and purpose, using her platform to amplify stories that mattered. This era also saw Selena expand her influence off-screen. Her philanthropy became a central part of her public identity. She worked with UNICEF and later launched initiatives that focused on mental health, education, and wellness. Her openness about her own struggles gave her advocacy authenticity, allowing her to connect with people not as a distant celebrity but as someone who had walked through the fire herself. Whether funding mental health programs, championing causes for young women, or using her platform to encourage social awareness, Selena proved that her stardom was about more than fame, it was about impact. By reinventing her artistry, diversifying her career, and stepping into philanthropy, Selena carved out a unique lane. She was no longer compared solely to her Disney peers, she had graduated into a respected figure who commanded her own space in both entertainment and cultural discourse. Her revival era wasn't just about proving she could grow up, it was about proving she could evolve, influence, and endure. Selena Gomez's next chapter was one of artistic triumph and personal authenticity, crystallized in her 2020 album Rare. The record, led by the hauntingly beautiful single Lose You to Love Me, became a career-defining moment. Stripped down and emotionally raw, the song was not just a breakup ballad but an anthem of self-discovery and healing. It resonated deeply with listeners worldwide, becoming her first song to top the Billboard Hot 100. The success of Rare marked a turning point. Selena wasn't just delivering catchy pop tracks anymore, she was telling her truth in its most unfiltered form. And the world embraced it. The album's title itself, Rare, became a declaration of self-worth and individuality, cementing Selena's identity as an artist unafraid to be vulnerable. What set this era apart was how seamlessly Selena integrated her personal growth into her professional ventures. Alongside her music, she launched Rare Beauty in 2020, a cosmetics brand that quickly became a global phenomenon. But it wasn't just another celebrity makeup line, it had a mission. Rare Beauty stood out because it was built on inclusivity, celebrating diverse skin tones and redefining beauty standards with a focus on self-acceptance. More importantly, a portion of proceeds went directly to the Rare Impact Fund, which Selena established to expand access to mental health services. With this, her entrepreneurial vision became an extension of her advocacy, merging commerce with compassion in a way few celebrities had achieved. Philanthropy and activism became even more central to her brand during this period. She used her massive social media platform, with hundreds of millions of followers, not just to promote her work but to highlight issues she cared about. From supporting mental health awareness to encouraging young people to engage in civic life, Selena consistently used her voice for causes larger than herself. Her own candid discussions about therapy, anxiety, and depression helped break stigmas around mental health, making her one of the most relatable and respected voices in entertainment. Fans didn't just see her as a pop star or actress, they saw her as someone unafraid to show her struggles and use them to inspire change. Through rare beauty and her philanthropic efforts, Selena Gomez elevated herself into a global influence that transcended traditional celebrity. She had built a brand rooted in honesty, vulnerability, and empowerment. Unlike many who burned out or faded after Disney, Selena found a way to reinvent her career around her truth. The rare era cemented her as more than an entertainer, it made her a cultural icon whose impact stretched across music, business, and advocacy, with a legacy that continues to grow. Selena Gomez's latest chapter has proven to be one of her most celebrated yet, marked by the kind of critical recognition and professional maturity that many doubted she would ever reach. Her co-starring role in Only Murders in the Building alongside comedy legends Steve Martin and Martin Short was a revelation. The Hulu series not only gave Selena a chance to flex her acting chops in a new light but also earned her some of the strongest reviews of her career. She held her own against two of Hollywood's most seasoned performers, grounding the show with a dry wit and emotional depth that showcased just how far she had come from her Disney Channel roots. This wasn't about proving herself anymore, this was about thriving in a space where her talent could finally be recognized without qualification. But acting is just one facet of her present identity. Today, Selena Gomez stands as a multi-talented force, a musician with chart-topping hits, a producer behind projects like 13 Reasons Why and Living Undocumented, and a businesswoman whose rare beauty empire has reshaped the conversation around beauty and self-image. She has managed to achieve what so few child stars ever do, transition into adulthood not only intact but stronger, more influential, and more impactful than ever. Her career is no longer defined by comparisons to other Disney alumni, nor by the turbulence of her early 20s. Instead, it's defined by resilience, reinvention, and a quiet but powerful sense of purpose. What makes Selena's story resonate isn't perfection, it's the opposite. She has stumbled publicly, endured heartbreaks, struggled with illness, and faced the unrelenting magnifying glass of fame. Yet at each turn, she chose honesty over artifice. She let the world see her scars. And in doing so, she gave millions of fans permission to embrace their own vulnerabilities. Her battles with lupus, her openness about mental health, and her willingness to share the messy, unglamorous side of life turned her into more than a celebrity, they turned her into a symbol of survival. Selena Gomez today represents the legacy of resilience. She is proof that success in the entertainment industry doesn't have to come at the cost of humanity. She has shown that vulnerability can be a superpower, that reinvention is possible without losing authenticity. And that influence is most meaningful when it's used for something greater than oneself. Whether through her music, her acting, her entrepreneurial ventures, or her advocacy, Selena has built a legacy not just as an entertainer but as a role model for perseverance, honesty, or heart. And perhaps that's her greatest achievement, not the awards, not the #1 hits, not the billions of streams, but the fact that she has become someone who inspires others to believe that even in the face of relentless challenges, you can keep going. But you can still shine.